It's a lot of good stuff. I think we've delved into this topic. Before we leave, I'd like to give each of you just a chance to say, as companies begin to think about SDDC, what is the one thing they should keep in mind? Mark, your idea of that, if they just, as companies think about this, what's one last thing they should be keeping in mind?
Yeah, I'm just going to go back on what I just said. It's just the changing consumption model, the move away from purchasing and procuring and architecting those individual components, and ultimately taking more of a converged or building block approach. People really need to recognize what that means. They have to shift away from being fearful from that, and they have to really think of how that can help from a time to value perspective, how it helps from an operational perspective, and ultimately how it helps really change and re-architect their data center. So it's really that changing consumption model, I think, is the one thing that to take away and think of, and it snaps right into where people are talking about software-defined data centers.
Mm-hmm. Peter, your one piece of advice for companies looking to get on board with SDDC, what would you tell them?
Yeah, to continue on Mark's theme, we end up with new consumption models, new ways to build infrastructure. I don't think the previous generation of vendors are the ones that are going to lead you down that path. So be sure to look at the new innovative solutions as well as the...
Oh, you're recommending startups in addition to the legacy vendors.
It might be a little self-serving, but I think it's valid as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Rich, your piece of advice to companies, the one thing to think about?
Yeah, I think it's a journey that we're continuing down this path. I think taking a step back and looking across the space, clearly there's leaders in the vertical stack that we know and love, and some of them may be able to make that transition or not, to Pete's point. But I think ultimately, the view is going to be how do we align applications to infrastructure as opposed to how do we build storage arrays and servers and operating systems and networks to support that. So it'll be more of this converged view up through the application, I believe. You need to take that holistic view.
Stu, you probably get asked this a lot. I mean, by companies. What should we be thinking about as we get on board or don't get on board with SDDC?
Yeah, James, and I think I'll echo back what I said before. You need to start with really kind of justifying your application portfolio, understanding your data, because infrastructure needs to serve that. So absolutely, we talked about things like scalability and agility, and having better costs are great, but understand what the role of IT is, and IT and business need to be working closely together. And what is really makes sense for us to do in-house and to build that modern data center if I'm doing it, or are there partners and other solutions that I should look at, because just like most people aren't hosting their own CRM, everybody's going to Salesforce. There's certain pieces of your application portfolio that you want to move to a more modern solution that might be offsite. So it's really just understanding what we're doing rather than just keep doing what we're doing on a faster or better infrastructure. Because if I'd say one negative I've have about server virtualization is it actually allowed IT to keep doing a lot of the application side the way they were. I think back 10 years ago, people would just shove their old Windows applications in a VM and leave them there forever, and they need to just fight with that for years afterwards, because if I can just leave things unchanged, IT is usually happy to let that happen, and that doesn't serve the needs of the business who needs to innovate and move forward.
Great. I appreciate the four of you sharing your expertise. I'll send you the link to this. We can all tweet it. So thank you very much for being on board, and I'll talk to you soon.